All right, we'll return to open meeting tonight, and we'll begin tonight with recognitions of new hires. Ms. Koenig.
Good evening, everyone. Of course, in Lovejoy, it is a tradition to give our professional new hires a pen so they can write the next chapter of their professional career with Lovejoy, and an apple to symbolize the highly role of educators in our schools and in our community. So I'm going to ask Caitlin Elridge, the principal of Willow Springs Middle School, will you please come up, introduce your new hires to us?
Y'all are sweet. It is my great joy to introduce my new hires for 23-24. First up, we have Mr. Mason Leach. Mason Leach, here we go, is teaching 8th grade U.S. history. He has a successful track record as a high school U.S. history teacher and former head baseball coach in McKinney ISD. Next, we have Coach Michael Ramos. He is our boys athletic coordinator and teaches strength and conditioning, having brought the whole family to Lovejoy, as his wife is also teaching in our district. Miss Haley Wilborn. She joins us from Princeton ISD. She is a dedicated theater director with personal experience as an actress. Miss Mallory Sizemore. Joining us to teach 7th grade science, having graduated from Sam Houston State, has experience teaching in McKinney ISD and Bryan ISD. Coach Dylan Dubuque. Coach Dubuque is a new Texas resident, coming to us from New York and coaching multiple sports, including high school and middle school wrestling. Miss Resmi Mohan. She is teaching 7th grade science, coming to us from Imagine Academy, having previously taught microbiology and biotechnology at the collegiate level. Miss Reagan Campbell. She is teaching 7th grade RLA, first a Lovejoy community member, raising her children in our district. She joins us from Irving ISD, and we're happy to welcome her home. Mr. Zachary Paxton. Mr. Paxton is a proud graduate of Lovejoy ISD and comes to us from the Shelton School. We're happy to welcome home another Lovejoy Leopard. Mr. Nick Lavecchia. Mr. Lavecchia comes to Lovejoy from the Winston School in Dallas, where he served as the yearbook sponsor and previously in a career in educational publishing.
Thank you. Okay, y'all can all scooch together so we can get a picture. Mr. Lewis. Yeah.
We even like to love each other. There we go.
All right, thank you all so much and welcome aboard again. Item 6 tonight is public comments for agenda items.
There are no comments tonight.
Thank you very much. Item 7 is our board legislative subcommittee update.
I'm up. So just to get started, I'll do a brief recap. Of course, at our September workshop, we discussed as a board that we anticipated that the governor would call another special session to focus on education. We brainstormed as a board as to what we were hopeful we would see in that special session, and that led to the development of a revised set of legislative priorities that we discussed and adopted at the September meeting. And for those that are just now listening, we hope that you are able to go back and take a look at those. So since that meeting, of course, the governor has announced another special session. He put that out on Friday, October 6th, right before we were all going for fall break. And then the session gabbled in last week while we were out. And so the governor has identified two priorities initially. One would be the passage of legislation for education savings accounts, and one for border security. So importantly, I think that the number one thing I would take away is just that there was no priority identified for public education funding or for teacher compensation, and that's disappointing to us. But I think that it's important that that our community is aware that the session is underway. There is legislation being proposed in both the House and the Senate now related to education funding. And we are hopeful that our legislative priorities will be heard and will be addressed in this session. Any other updates?
Thank you very much. Item 8 tonight is, again, on the legislative side, discussion and action on our school board letter to our state legislatures and to the community. And along those same lines, following up on Julie's statements, much work's been done. Grateful for our legislative committee doing some heavy lifting for us here. And our letter to notify our representatives of the priorities that are existing here in Lovejoy and the actions that we ask them to take to represent our interest to keep excellence in Lovejoy and to keep us unique. And so these letters are going to be on behalf of the entire board. Each of you will have your signatures on them. And the letter to the community will make that same letter clear to them, as well as comments from me about our positions. So would like, since we're all going to be signing it, for you all to have a moment to give input and or any requested changes, and then to take action to approve that letter going out. Comments or changes, anything you want to pull out just for notice to the community? They'll be getting it, obviously, so, but any comments or changes? If there's none, we'd consider a motion.
I'll make a motion to, as a board, to sign the letters as presented.
So moved. Mark Wheelis, second. Jason James, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right, item 9 is presentation, the preview of the 22-23 financial audit. Mr. Willman.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Cordell. Tonight, we wanted to provide you with an update on our audit. Our auditors have completed their work for the 22-23 school year, and they have provided us with a preliminary report for our review. So as of right now, preliminary, as far as the purpose of the audit, sorry, I'm all out of whack. So there's an independent review of the district financials and procedures for the Board of Trustees, and then they audit the accuracy of our financial information and provide an opinion on that, on the reports and the compliance. The audit is an annual requirement. Sorry, I'm not feeling well. My head is throbbing, so I apologize. So CFC legal list of requirements, and then we must submit the TEA audit to TEA by November 27th, and then we must post it on the website. So the overall procedures, as we routinely updated the board on, is from July through September. July and August was the audit preparation by our team, and then the auditors came in on site for the review. And then September, we responded to the inquiry. During the month of September, we also wait for TEA to publish a near final summary of finance, which reflects our summer submissions for our attendance in ADA. So all of our state funding is updated and recaptures updated based off of information that we provided by the end of August and throughout the summer. And then at the end of September, early October, just recently, the auditors provided us with their proposed adjusting journal entries, which we're going through right now and making a decision on whether we accept those proposed entries. And then we also throughout the process, also recommended some entries that we would like for him to consider. And then at the end of this month, we will, October 30th, the regular board meeting, Mr. Deaton will come forth and present the final audit for your approval. So some of the highlights, as of right now, preliminary, there's no material inaccuracies found in the financial statements. So there's an unmodified opinion. Also, the no PIC, the program intent code. So those are additional funding that we receive, such as special ed, CTE, and LEP funding that has restrictions on required spend amounts. We met those obligations, so there's no refund requirements or reductions for that. And then also he audited our federal programs, so no major issues with our federal programs, and also reviewed student nutrition as well as part of the major federal programs. Some things that he recommended coming out of the audit was to be consistent with our federal programs and apply the indirect rate to student nutrition. The reason for that is just to show if there's inconsistency, TA could come back and ask, why are you doing it for one federal program and not the others? And there's exposure there. So we were able to, since the books have not closed for the 22-23, we moved forward with the decision to apply the federal indirect rate to the student nutrition program that helps support the fund balance for the 22-23 school year. And then one other recommendation was for us to review our process of outdated checks that haven't been cashed and ensure that we're regularly reviewing that and reissuing. And then if it's exceeded 2 years, that we are required to report that to the state as unclaimed property. So we are working on doing that this month to implement a process to regularly review that. So overall financial reports, so that we began the year with a $10.9 million fund balance based off of the 21-22 year end, or roughly 103 days. Right now, preliminary numbers, which is inclusive, as I mentioned, the settle up from the summary of finance, that includes all the recapture, tax collection, and state aid. We have a preliminary ending balance of roughly 16.2 million, or 159 days of fund balance. So we'll have final numbers of days and percent change for the October regular board meeting. We don't anticipate that it's going to change much. I've already reviewed all of the adjusting entries and agree with the entries that he's proposed. So we anticipate that it will be the 16.2 million. Our first rating indicator 6 requires that we have 75 days or less than a 25% decrease. So I feel we're going to be in a good position with the first rating with on this indicator for the fund balance. And then GFOA recommends starting with the 90-day and adjusting for the cash flow. So since we depend heavily on the tax collection, the December through February tax collection, 159 days is really healthy. Okay.
That first rating is one where we had, if I'm recalling correctly, we were penalized a bit for fund balance in that one. When does that get updated?
So for the 22-23 school year, it won't be until this time next year, because we won't submit we'll submit our actuals in November, our audit, but then in January we'll upload our GL detail to them. So next year. So this year will reflect the 21-22, and we'll have a public comment or public preview of that in November.
A couple questions. Good job on unqualified audit. That's always the goal of accounting. It's a great job. Most of the audit adjustments, were they relating to reclassification entries?
Yes, reclassification.
And then so going forward, will we go ahead and
We'll
move that process forward so next year we can avoid those?
absolutely. The goal is to eliminate and minimize the number of proposed entries coming from the auditor.
And then the checks that Lovejoy writes, do they expire after 90 days or 120 days
It's
for the
90
stale checks?
After 90 days. So we just haven't, the bank won't cash after 90 days, but we just haven't gone to reach out to, due to the transition, we just have, that's the step that we've missed that we want to start back up and to reissue.
Nothing wrong with keeping the cash in the bank and getting interest.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item 10, consideration and possible action regarding modifications to update tuition for Lovejoy scholars to address changes made by TEA in the 23-24 Student Attendance Accounting Handbook. Mr. Willman and Ms. Koenig.
Good evening, Board. Tonight, we're sharing a change that was made to the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook, the SAW, for the 23-24 school year. The SAW was finalized by the Texas Education Agency, TEA, on September 22nd, and it includes a change to section 3.2.1.1. I'm going to show you, here was the change document. The slide shows the revision of the change document and the bullet that was added at the end of the section. And as you can see, that the bullet that was added at the end of the section talks about or references a non-resident student who is charged tuition for the purposes of reducing local revenue. I wanted to refer back to the attendance accounting handbook that was last year for the 22-23 school year. And if you look at 3.2.1.1, code 0, enrolled, not in membership. So the code 0 is a student with an ADA eligibility code of 0 is not eligible to generate ADA or FSB funding. And here you can see that there are 6 bullet points that are addressed in the 22-23 school year, and the next one for the 23-24 school year shows the change. So once again, in this one, the SAW for the 23-24 school year, another bullet was added that states a non-resident student who is charged tuition for the purposes of reducing local revenue would receive a code 0, which means that the student is enrolled but not in membership. So the last statement on the section confirms that a student coded with an ADA eligibility of 0 is not eligible to generate ADA or FSP funding. So basically what we're asking is this change requires the district to make a decision, so either to receive tuition or ADA funding. That is new this year, and as you can see, it was not posted in the SAW or the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook last year. I'm going to turn this over to our CFO, Thomas Willman, to discuss those financial implications of the SAW.
Thank you, Hannah. So the financial implications of the administrative change to this all are scenario 1, where we can maintain the tuition and forego the attendance and the associated state aid funding. With that, what we're looking at is a reduction in state aid funding of roughly 1.5 million and an increase in recapture of roughly 61,000 for a total financial implication of roughly 1.5 million to Lovejoy ISD. And then in scenario 2, we would forego the tuition and maintain the attendance reporting and the associated state aid funding, which would then have a financial implication with eliminating the tuition of roughly $1 million. So it's the administration's recommendation that the board review the provided financial implications of the Texas Education Agency's changes to the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook and consider action regarding the 2023-2024 Lovejoy Scholar tuition. Scenario 1 of maintaining tuition and forego attendance and state aid funding, or scenario 2, forego tuition and maintain attendance and state aid funding.
So I have a question. So Anna, this seems sudden. When was this change effective?
The SAW was effective September 22nd is when we received notification of the change. And that's why I wanted to refer back to the last year's SAW, because it was not in there. There were just the 6 bullet points and that last one was added. So just recently, within the last 3 weeks, what's today, the 16th?
And it's effective for this school year, correct?
Correct. It's reflected for this school year. So the last Friday of the month, we have what refers to a snapshot day, but then our final report is due, usually it's due November 30th, but most people get it in around November 16th, right before Thanksgiving, so if any changes need to be made.
So I think, I feel like I just want to step back just a minute, make sure I understand, just being so, you know, intimately focused on the 88th legislative session.
Right.
And we discussed as a board, we discussed with the community, the impact of some of that proposed legislation down in Austin in the spring, that was going to potentially impact the scholars program.
Correct.
And that didn't pass. Those legislation didn't pass. But here we are, kind of with the addition of a single bullet in page 1.2. whatever.
Yeah. Page 36.
The TEA has effectively made that change for us. And in order for us to report our attendance accurately, we will have to make the decision between getting the ADA, which, just to restate for everybody's, is that this is the basic allotment per child, right? We'll have to make a choice between the basic allotment or the tuition. Is that correct?
That is correct.
As a result of that change, we have two options. Option one is collect tuition and lose 1.571 million, or collect ADA and lose 1 million effectively. So basically, they've taken $1 million away from us ultimately for this school year, although we started the year with a different set of rules. As became effective September 22nd, those rules changed.
That is correct. We have not seen it in the previous SOLs, so it just came in effect this year. And they even made the note on the change document, so I wanted to share it with you.
So if we forego tuition, what happens to the families that have already submitted a tuition payment?
We will issue a refund once the decision is made, start the process tomorrow. We hope to have all the refunds issued by this time next week.
Well, one thing's for certain, that those folks who've come here in our transfer program are Lovejoy Leopards now. And I know that as a board, we want to ensure that those folks graduate as Lovejoy Leopards. And our intention would be that they have a place to attend as they transfer, whether they're paying tuition or not. These folks voluntarily saw value in our programs, came and invested in it on their own accord, in their own will. And it's not their fault that we can't accept their funds in the form of tuition. So, I mean, I think it would be our intention as a board, and you all can speak up, but I certainly would love to see these kids graduate from Lovejoy.
I agree. I feel like I also want to make a statement that the impacts in Austin impact us, and that small rule changes like this take away our ability to run our programs or have local control in these types of funds. So this is another point in time where our voice in Austin is so important.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The sentiments expressed by Barrett and also Julie. We spent a lot of time this summer during the regular legislative session opposing bills that would mandate certain aspects of a transfer program and prevent us from charging tuition. Those bills failed. I know our lovely state senator has filed another bill like that in order to number one, mandate that all school districts accept transfers regardless, well, based on capacity, an ill-defined concept of capacity, but, and prohibit tuition and have an acceptance criteria by which you're basically performing a lottery to see what students are achieved admission into the district. Not certain that's going to change this fall because of the very specific special session parameters that they're currently acting under. But I want to make it clear that while we were successful in fighting changes to the transfer program legislatively, this has been done to us administratively, kind of, I'll just say it, under the table. And so, we have to react to it, and based on being financial, stewards of the district. I mean, we're looking at a lesser of two evils, 1.5 million or 1 million. Again, I want to point out that this is being done to us, not by us, and we are having to make a decision based on these administrative rule changes that occurred way outside of the legislative process.
I also want to emphasize Barrett's point that these are our kids, these are our students, these are families that we care about. And this has been a lot of uncertainty and back and forth. And it is our intention to love these families and these students all the same, regardless of all of the up and down of legislation and administration, TEA, all of that. It's our intention to continue to allow them to be a part of this Leopard family, for sure.
So you've got proposed budget or proposal to amend the scholars program here. And we need to make a decision, take action appropriately. Obviously, taking the lesser of two evils seems obvious, but we need to formalize that with a motion, a second, a vote.
It doesn't feel like we have that many options in front of us, so I'll make a motion that we will proceed with option 2, which is to amend the scholars program to remove tuition in order to preserve our ability to collect ADA and to request that the administration refund the tuition payments previously collected.
So move, Ms. McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Second, Jeff Wood. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right, item 11, financial implications of the decision 23-24 student attendance accounting handbook on our district budget.
Good evening again. So tonight we wanted to share a presentation of the financial impact to the district based off the change to the SAW, as well as review some other key variances that we've experienced so far through the first 3 months of the fiscal year that were from the approved budget in June. And we will be bringing forward for your approval during the regular October board meeting these changes. So just to take you down the path again of all the things that we've accomplished since dating back to the 2020-2021 school year, when we ended the year with roughly 76 days of fund balance. Some of the key financial sustainability measures that we've incorporated, really doing an assessment of the current state and engaging and updating our demographic study, while also engaging in a staffing efficiency study. Development of a 3-year budget projection financial model that provides some visibility into the decisions that we were making in the current year and the impact that it had 3 years down the road. And then also the formation of the community-based financial sustainability committee. And then also the establishment of the board budget priorities with restoring the fund balance, employee compensation, attendance, and enrollment. And then also the past few years, really diving in and doing a zero-based budgeting process, while also implementation of some different financial efficiency measures that assisted with restoring the fund balance.
Prior to the actions that we're having to take, we've made great progress towards that.
Yes.
Very thankful for the work we've done so far.
Yes, absolutely. We made tremendous progress and a lot of work, hard work that was done with everyone that was involved. So when we look at our budget priority of fund balance, we take a look at our 21-22 year where we restored the fund balance with a surplus of roughly 2.4 million and increased the days of operating expense from 76 days to 108. And then as previously mentioned in the previous agenda item with the audit for the 22-23 school year, we originally adopted a surplus budget of approximately 2.1 million, but we are anticipating a preliminary $5.3 million surplus, increasing our days of operating expenses to 159 days. And then as we dive into our enrollment, as we had mentioned, we engaged with the demographer to have them provide us with an updated demographic study. This is a report that was dated back in February 2022, where you can see with a red bar for the 23-24 year, they had proposed 4,320 enrollment, which assumed 300 scholars. And then looking at the gray bar showing up about 4,294, which is roughly 135 scholars. And then the most recent, this past February, we brought him back to reevaluate based off of what we were seeing. And you can see here his 3 different scenarios, the low, which is the green, the moderate, and then the high ranging from 4,164, which includes the 225 scholars, up to 4,227. Thankfully, we, as Superintendent Cordell mentioned, we really had pushed on the demographers in question his numbers. He was really optimistic as far as the number of new constructions and the yield that those new constructions would provide. So we, in our budget, kind of met him halfway with what our initial thoughts were and his numbers were. So we projected in the 23-24 budget roughly 4,105. Where we are currently sitting as of 10/6, we have 4,029 students enrolled, which is inclusive of the Lovejoy scholars.
Is that an average for the year that the demographer did when he did his projection?
I believe it was an average for the year, yes. So in the 4,029, it does represent a moment in time, which is as of 10/5, and not the average. And I'll show the average on the financial statements when we get there. So the other priority is attendance. So when we look at our attendance in 2022-23, the district improvement plan, we were pushing to across the district, increasing from the 94.36 to 95.5. We did meet that objective and ended the year with 95.6%. When we look at our preliminary numbers through October 6th, we're currently sitting at 97.18%. When comparing this to this time last year, we were at 96.28. So we're seeing a 0.9% improvement in our ADA. So if we're able to maintain this going forward and we end the year with a 0.9% improvement, because we use the budget of 95.6, this would increase our revenue by $255,000. So a 1% increase in ADA is roughly $300,000 of additional revenue that would come our way. So if we are able to maintain the current 97.1, it's roughly $468,000 of additional revenue.
I just want to pause there and make a comment. That's unbelievable and very exciting. I have gotten a lot of feedback, as I'm sure the rest of you had, and I've heard from staff too, that this last week was a really refreshing break and appreciated, and the extra days off here and there. I'm hoping that this is a reflection of that people are intentional of using the days that we have off instead of taking other days. So I'm very encouraged by this. This has been a long-standing problem in our district, and to see it trending this well is exciting. It's to make note of for sure.
Yes, agreed. Thank you. So as we look at the proposed budget amendment 1 that we'll bring forward at the regular meeting, some of the key things that will changes that will be reflective in the proposed amendment will be the tuition, the Lovejoy scholars from the most recent agenda item that we just approved, which is the $1 million reduction in the Lovejoy scholars tuition. And then basically, as of right now, assuming that we have the 95.6% attendance rate, and based off our current enrollment and maintaining that enrollment throughout the rest of the year, it would have a revenue impact of roughly $582,000. As soon as we realized the change in the SAW, we were hard at work trying to identify other areas to solve for that problem, on top of with the enrollment challenge that we're facing. So we knew early on in the summer that we were facing an enrollment challenge. We saw that based off the applications of where we were. So we did hold 4 positions and did not hire for those positions, and just monitored and see if we ended up with the enrollment, then we would post those positions and allow our principals to hire for those positions. So since we have not met the budget, we are holding back those four positions and recognize that as a savings to the organization, which is roughly $255,000. And then once we found out through the audit process that the child care grant, we did receive roughly over $1 million. We had originally anticipated that we would recognize the rest of it in the 22-23 school year. We found out that they're giving us an extension through the end of November. So we made the decision not to draw down those funds and use it as revenue for the current year to help offset some of the deficit. And then also we were very conservative in our approach in our investment pools. on our interest earnings. We only budgeted for a $200,000 interest revenue. Through the first 3 months, we're already at $215,000. So we're confident that for the rest of the 9 months, we'll be able to earn 125 and potentially more to help. So we'll recognize that in the first budget amendment. And then we did a deep dive into all of our positions and payroll to see where we can identify some cost savings. So we do have a number of unfilled positions. So based off those unfilled positions from the anticipated start date, if they were supposed to start 7/1 through 9/30, that's a savings to the district. So we're going to go ahead and capture that as a savings in our budget amendment. And that's roughly $62,000 on that. But then also with our filled positions, really looking at the salary differential of what they were offered versus what we had budgeted. And then when they started and their delayed start amounted to about $124,000 in savings that we'll recognize as well. And then as you may recall, during the budgeting process, we did build in a $300,000 contingency in the event that something were to come up that was unexpected. We are going to put back a little over 100,000 of the contingency. We did have some unexpected things come up that we would need the 200,000. So we're going to go ahead and recognize the 100,000, which puts us at an anticipated deficit of roughly $665,000 for the 23-24 school year.
So on the line item for enrollment and attendance, the negative 582 is assuming a lower attendance than what we're currently
That's correct. That's
achieving. And if we have any additional enrollment for the rest of the year, that could help too. So higher attendance and more enrollment could help plug a lot more of the gap. Am I understanding that right?
That's correct. I understand it. Yeah, so that's correct. We're using the budgeted rate of the 95.6. So any improvement to that will benefit us.
And then if something really crazy happens and the basic allotment is adjusted, this will be adjusted too.
Absolutely. If anything comes out and increase in basic allotment or any additional funding.
Using the budget rate on attendance, but is it using our budgeted attendance number, or is it using our actual current attendance number?
It's using our current enrollment with the budgeted attendance rate.
It's
of
current enrollment down to the
95.6.
4,026.
That's correct.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you.
So what does this mean for overall financial projections for the next couple of years? So this here just shows what was adopted in the June 2023 board meeting, where we adopted pretty much a net neutral budget, and then grows out to where we see in 26, where it ends with 73 days. With the adjustment in 23-24 that we'll bring forward at the end of October, this incorporates the audited adjusted numbers of the $5.3 million surplus, and then the anticipated deficit of the 665. So you can see here in 22-23, we're increasing our fund balance for 159 days. Some of the key things and decisions that we made during this process was applying the indirect cost and leveraging the student nutrition surplus to help offset, and that was roughly 184,000. And then also, continuing with the property value audit that we do annually, that resulted us for the 2021 tax year of an additional 151,000 that we were not expecting. And then also, we're wrapping up a lot of the ESSER supplemental, but also a lot of the COVID-related grants that we were able to identify with the work of alongside with the auditor on allowable costs. That also gave us an additional 200,000 to the fund balance. So you can see here, as we look out to 2025, 2026, we're still in a good position given that we still have a healthy fund balance. 2026 will put us slightly higher than where we started back in 2021. But this also assumes that we're maintaining the previous projected enrollment and not declining at the same rate that we have previously.
And we are in better shape after the audit because our estimated ending fund balance was 15.3 and now we're at 16.2.
That's accurate. Yes.
So it looks like we're going to lower taxes a bit to avoid excess recapture. Is that correct?
That is correct, through the reduction in the maximum compressed rate. This reflects still the $40,000 homestead exemption. We can't put anything in until the voters approve the 100,000, but through the reduction in the tax rate, yes, you will see a reduction in the tax collection, ultimately leading to the reduction in recapture.
Right.
So, and then in the final slide, this just shows if we continue to trend in the next couple of years, our enrollment continues to trend downwards, and the impact that has to where in 2026, we're getting down to below where our initial starting point of the 76 days down to like 67 days.
Just a comment. I mean, I think there's some things outside of our control, right? If the TEA changes the handbook, or we can't really control who moves into the district and enrolls, right?
Right.
So I appreciate that you've made the best case that you can from these two curveballs thrown your way. And I appreciate that you've gone through the trouble to identify how we're going to start making up some of that gap.
Further questions for Mr. Wellman? Thank you, Thomas. All right, item 12 tonight is discussion and possible action on the resolution to nominate for the Collin County Appraisal District Board of Directors. Ms. Cordell.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. The Collin County Central Appraisal District is governed by a board of directors, and the taxing entities, of which we are one, may make nominations for the appraisal district's board of directors. So this is an option you have available. This is not a requirement. We've placed this on the agenda in the event you would like to do so. There is a sample resolution attached for that purpose. Just do know that the timeline that they have established is that they would have to have those nominations officially approved by the boards of those taxing entities by midnight tonight.
So for clarification, this candidate for future reference would be someone who would hear protests for tax valuations and matters concerning protests with the Collin County Central Appraisal District. I've not had anyone come forward to show interest that would be interested in serving in this role. So I know of no one. I don't know of anyone, but if you guys do, I'd feel free to hear it. You can. Are you going to nominate Jeff? Is that what you're thinking?
Marvin's here, let's do him.
Marvin.
He would do it. He volunteers.
So with that being said, for future reference, as this comes up each year, it would be good for the community to understand that we have this opportunity to have citizens serve in a role that would be advocating for our residents in the form of valuation, contesting, or things of that nature. But with there being no nominees, we're going to not take any action tonight on item 12, and we will consider it again when it comes up next year. All right, item 13 is monthly financial reports. Feel like we've already had that, Thomas.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm back. You're not rid of me quite yet. More spreadsheets, right? All right, so good evening. I want to kick off this presentation with the emphasis on one of our core values of best today, better tomorrow. So as a department, we take a step back and kind of reflect and see how we can improve our processes, but also how we can improve the visibility and information that we're providing to our key stakeholders. So we really wanted to take a look and see, like, when we look at our financial statements and we look at our financial monthly reports, how can we leverage those reports to make sound financial decisions? And we just felt that we could alter it a bit to be able to provide deeper insight into our financials that could help drive financial decisions. So we wanted to start off with just like, how do we hold ourselves somewhat accountable, and how are we monitoring on a monthly basis, kind of at a high level, and what are our key kind of financial components that we want to kind of put on a dashboard that just are just hitting kind of key topics, key indicators. So I would like to try to implement this on a monthly basis. Now, I will implement this on a monthly basis as part of the financial dashboard. What I've identified here, and welcome to any suggestions on what else we think that would be important for this dashboard, is we look at some of the key components that impact our financials here at Lovejoy ISD, and that is, as we discussed in previous agenda items, enrollment is important, as well as the average daily attendance and the percentage. So putting on there kind of what our target is and where we are currently on a monthly basis. So when we look at the current, this would be the average. So we're currently at a 40-25 average for the year through October. And then identifying where that is as far as, if we're exceeding the target or at target, that's a green light. But if we're in between 98, 99.9%, that's yellow, and then anything below 98% is red. And all of these are up for discussion to change. And then looking at some of the compliance components related to some of the board priorities, but also including looking at some of the first rating indicators that we can put on here. So as far as the compliance components, the days cash on hand, looking at it from a year-end perspective, we want to be in excess of 120 days, but then also looking at it and seeing on a monthly basis, what's the lowest that we want to go before we raise a red flag to be able to start planning and moving forward and saying, okay, we're below 45 days, we should be concerned and be thinking about alternative means to be able to make our monthly payroll and things like that. And then, on the INS side, just looking at some different measures, looking at the debt service coverage ratio, seeing if we're exceeding the 1.2 times as far as our revenue, and then what that looks like. But then even as we look at the potential of in the out years and with our capital planning that we're doing, if we need to leverage more debt, that we're looking not only at the current debt service, but in our current property values and our tax rates, can we cover our maximum annual debt service, and looking in the out years and seeing if we held constant with property values, that we can cover that maximum annual as well. Another piece I want to add is for us to really look at and see. So this is an example of just the daily enrollment that we're seeing at one of our schools, incorporating kind of looking at and seeing how the enrollment and then our attendance and the ADA percentage. We're seeing the trends throughout the year and how as being impactful, and then giving an update of where we are as far as our current district-wide average versus our attendance and the ADA rate. Ultimately, my goal would be we're building right now a database of historical information on daily attendance and daily enrollment that we can then leverage to be able to expand on this and improve, to be able to say, here's where we're at now, but based off of historical trends, we believe we're going to end up here. So kind of driving, being able to project into the future and where we think we're going to end for the current fiscal year. So here is just an example. Some of this is preliminary September numbers in here. We're still closing the books for September. We will have updated numbers for the October board meeting with finalized September numbers. But we really wanted to break it down to see, like, instead of just looking at it as a year-to-date number compared to overall budget, wanted to break it down and see how do we perform according to plan for the current month, but then also a year-to-date, and really emphasizing the need for developing a budget spread during our budgeting process. That's something that we look to improve on as we go through the current budget process for the 24-25 school year. And then in current meetings, this is just my best guess of what we think the budget spread will be, but we'll have meaningful conversations with our budget owners to truly understand what their spending habits are and how they feel they're going to spend. Most of this is payroll, so we have a good sense of what that looks like. But just from the non-payroll side, we want to have better visibility in that. And then kind of just looking over to the far right, just being able to see kind of how much do we have remaining. Ideally, at the end of this month, what I would like to be able to do is to have a detailed variance analysis incorporated in this, so that we can say, when we look at the month to date or year to date, we're seeing some variances. Can we capture that? Or is it just more of a, hey, this was a timing, our schools, we plan on spending it, it's just we're pushing it down to the later months? Or this is a true variance that we can capture as a savings to the district, or an unexpected variance that we need to figure out how to solve for. So the timeline of implementation of like additional statements and analysis, am looking to bring forward in the October regular board meeting, the implementation of all the different, so we'll have the 3 different groups that the board approves, which is the general fund, student nutrition, and debt service, while also incorporating the implementation of special revenue. Even though we don't approve special revenue budgets, it does impact our cash flow and impacts, how we look at our overall government-wide financial statements. While the expenses may be restricted, cash is fungible. So when we manage our cash and our investments, we look at cash in totality rather than breaking them up in different groups. And then incorporating our balance sheet, which compares kind of current year to date, looking at our total balance sheet and cash flow statement rather than just looking at kind of what our cash position is in the current month. So just having that visibility into that. And then in the November board meeting, I would like to incorporate projections to where we believe we're going to be for the end of the school year and have a 12-month rolling cash flow. So we can kind of look and see kind of where our cash flows dip and kind of what that looks like and be able to project that out. And then also implementing a government-wide statement. So you can see all 3 statements on a government-wide level.
Yeah, Thomas,
That's all I have.
this is an awesome job, excellent. It helps us do our job when we have such detailed information. And it's a Fortune 500 business does it like this, where they have the monthly actuals and the budgets and the variances, and then the year-to-date and variances and remaining to spend. So excellent job.
Thank you.
All right, there are no announcements tonight, so we would be adjourned.